After a 22-month-long investigation into one of the most obsessively covered stories in the U.S. media, the Special Counsel investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government in the 2016 U.S. presidential election is now over. And according to Trump's Attorney General, the president is in the clear. No collusion, no obstruction of justice. But is that the full story? Don't we need to see the full Robert Mueller report? Or was this just a massive failure by an anti-Trump media? Joining me to debate this are journalist and Russiagate critic Aaron Mate, who's called the collusion allegations a conspiracy theory, and David Cay Johnston, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author of the book It's Even Worse Than You Think: What the Trump Administration is Doing to America. David, Aaron, thanks for joining me in the arena. David, can I start with you? It looks like it's all over. Apparently, Robert Mueller did not conclude that anyone in the Trump campaign, quote, conspired or coordinated with the Russians in interfering in the elections. That was supposed to be the main purpose of the investigation. Trump has been given the all clear. You in the media, the Democrats, you got it all wrong.
Well, actually, Bill Barr's letter says that Trump is not exonerated on obstruction of justice, and he frames the issue of collusion in terms of the Russian government. The Russian government operates often through oligarchs and cutouts and other people who aren't directly the Russian government. So we need to see the Mueller report.
Aaron, you've repeatedly called the Russiagate story a conspiracy theory. Is it now all done and dusted for you, or does David have a point?
Well, I certainly agree with David that we should see the full report, but the fact that we haven't seen it yet, I don't think should be used to deflect from the fact that Mueller has just permanently debunked the conspiracy theory. His mandate was to uncover ties between Trump and the Russian government in a bid to influence the 2016 election. The Barr report makes clear that he did not, and I don't think that if Barr was mischaracterizing Robert Mueller, that Robert Mueller, who has the integrity of a Marine we've been hearing about for 2 years about how great he is, I don't think Robert Mueller would sit by. So I think the fact that...
Here's what I don't get, Aaron. As you say, we've been hearing about him being a Marine and great integrity for a couple of years. But I follow your Twitter thread. You and I talk online. You've been one of the big critics of people who've been bigging up Robert Mueller for 2 years until he suddenly says something you agree with. And now you're saying, well, we don't need the full report to come to a conclusion that this is all done. In fact, you said last July, can I quote you?
Please. We
should not just believe Robert Mueller's claims now on faith without concrete evidence. That's exactly what you've been doing since Sunday, isn't it?
I've been believing that if Robert Mueller had found evidence of a conspiracy, he certainly would allege it. He would indict somebody for it. And in a report in which he's investigating a Trump-Russia conspiracy, if he had found evidence of it, he would say that there was a Trump-Russia conspiracy. But he says in his report that he found that there was no collusion found. Now, obviously, I am waiting to see the full report. I can't wait to see the underlying evidence. I just don't think it's going to provide people with the fuel for the narrative that they're thinking. I think David, it's going to, if anything...
Okay. Wouldn't you have more credibility, David, if people on your side of the argument, to put it crudely, hadn't so over-egged the pudding on US cable news and elsewhere? You went on TV a few weeks ago and I believe called Donald Trump a Kremlin agent. That was absurd even before the Mueller report came out to suggest that.
Yes, and I corrected that. I didn't realize I'd said agent. I said asset. And I do believe
even asset
Trump
is a little bit strong, don't you
asset.
think? Even without reading the Mueller report,
no.
he didn't sign a contract to work for Russian intelligence. That's over-egging even what we know.
In the meaning in the intelligence world of asset, Donald Trump is an asset. He is what the old Soviet called a useful idiot. He has carried the water of the Kremlin repeatedly on things like attacking NATO and other positions. Now, the world isn't black and white. There's lots of grays in here. But all these roads keep leading back to the Kremlin and to Russia. But the underlying important point here is we only know what Bill Barr's spin is on the facts. Bill Barr, without being dishonest, can put a spin on this that helps the person who put him in office after he auditioned for that job.
Let me put that point to Aaron.
And that's what we need to focus on.
Aaron,
get the Mueller report.
Aaron, do you trust Bill Barr, a man who was appointed Attorney General specifically to undermine this whole investigation, represents the most dishonest president probably in the history of the United States? Do you trust his 4-page summary of a several hundred-page report? I think he only quoted 64 words from the Mueller report. You trust him?
It's certainly not the final say, and we have to see the full report. I totally agree. I have to respond to what David just said, because I think it exemplifies a dynamic that underscores how problematic Russiagate has been. So David says that Trump is an useful idiot of the Kremlin and repeatedly does their bidding. In this effort to sustain our conspiracy theory that Trump and Russia are in cahoots, we've ignored all the actual things that Trump has done against Russia, all of which have seriously escalated tensions between these two nuclear powers. Pulling out of the INF Treaty, thereby setting off basically a new nuclear arms race. Trump right now is trying to overthrow Putin's ally in Venezuela. Trump is trying to stop a vital German-Russia gas pipeline. And it can go on and on and on. There's
Aaron,
so
you
many
can
examples
go on and
like
on, and
this.
those are all good points.
Aaron, I agree with you. The world is not black and white. Donald Trump will do things that are contradictory. All people do. The world isn't black and white. And keep in mind, Donald Trump is totally incompetent to be president. So when you look at his actions, what you want
No
to
argument there.
Okay,
No
so
argument
no
there.
argument there. Hold on, guys. Let me introduce an argument here then, Aaron. You mentioned, Donald Trump's kind of the hawkish stuff he's done on Russia, and you're right to raise that. We've raised that on this show as well. But on the other hand, you also then have to acknowledge the stuff he's done that does make him look like a quote-unquote useful idiot. He stood next to Vladimir Putin in Helsinki and said, I trust President Putin over my own intelligence agencies. He says he didn't interfere in the election. I agree with him. Surely, Aaron, and by the way, Aaron, you yourself spent the last couple of years poo-pooing the idea that the Russians interfered in the election. Bob Mueller, the man you're now quoting to do your victory lap, says that they did interfere. So shouldn't you own the fact that David's side got stuff wrong on collusion? You got stuff wrong on Russian interference in WikiLeaks.
No, Mehdi, look. Think about the merits of that argument. Just because a prosecutor might get it right on one thing doesn't mean that they got it right on another.
Are you kidding me, Aaron?
Examine...
Are you basically saying you're cherry-picking Mueller to the bits you agree with?
I'm not
You literally just said, just because he got it right on the stuff I agree with, he doesn't mean he's got it right on the stuff I... So do you disagree with the Mueller conclusion? Let me just be clear for our viewers. Do you disagree that Mueller's conclusion, Mueller says specifically that according to Barr,
I do not disagree. I do not disagree.
Hold on, let me finish the quote. Determined that there were two main Russian efforts to influence the 2016 election. Do you dispute that line from Mueller?
No, I don't dispute it.
So you were wrong for the last 2 years suggesting there wasn't.
No, hold on a second, Mehdi. First of all, you're not characterizing my views of the last 2 years correctly. And let me lay them out now. My point is simply you have to assess each case on its merits. I've assessed all the evidence to date for a Trump-Russia conspiracy. I've been arguing for 2 years that it's not there. Mueller apparently felt the same, okay? All the available evidence I've seen undermines the case for it, and now we have the conclusion from Mueller that it did not happen. Again, I can't wait for the final report.
David, briefly, do you want to respond to that?
I think there's a real simple issue here. Donald Trump has the authority to make every word of this report public, just the way the Starr report was entirely made public. Why isn't he using his power to do so? That's all we need to know. Unless we see every word of that report, why aren't we seeing it when Donald Trump has the power to release a report that he claims exonerates him?
Aaron, isn't that weird that if I'm Donald Trump and I have a report that gives me complete and total exoneration, as he tweeted earlier this week, why are they going to such desperate lengths to say it'll never be published, you'll never see it, you'll just get a Barr summary? Why? It's weird.
But they're not saying that, Mehdi, they're not saying that. Trump has said he wants the full report released, and Barr has said they're working to release that. They're going through a standard
Aaron, don't insult our intelligence. You know very well right now Republican senators are going out of their way, Rand Paul just this week, Mitch McConnell, to block the publication of the full report. You know that, Aaron.
They blocked a
Trump has
Democratic
the authority
measure
right now to make it public.
Okay, listen. I would love for Trump right now to make the full thing
But why
public.
isn't he, is what I'm asking.
I don't,
you would love it.
well,
I'm just
listen,
wondering why he's not.
The official story is that they're going
asking
through
for
it
your story. I don't care about the official story. Why do you think he hasn't released the report?
Because I think they're going through it right now to redact parts that they feel are sensitive. We've heard about what a sensitive counterintelligence investigation this is. So to me, what they're saying about redacting sensitive parts is plausible. I mean, I can't prove that they're not covering it up.
I wish I had your faith in the Trump administration. Aaron Mate, David Cay Johnston, thank you both for joining me in the arena. We'll have to leave it there. This debate is certainly not over. That's our show. Up Front will be back next week.